to the Businessmen and Women of Color podcast. I am your host, Ann Austin, and it is once again my pleasure to bring quality programs to all of you. Yes, I am going to say it for the 70th time today that I am so excited to have another amazing professional speaker on this platform today. I can't tell you how many folks I have met in 2018 that is just phenomenal with what they do, where they came from, how they overcame. And here we have another amazing professional who we're going to talk to today about his background and his passion for leadership coach training. We are definitely in the season of 2018 for leadership. There's a lot of conversation going on in 2018 in terms of leadership, getting coaches, getting a mentor to help you with your business. And so I would like for everybody who is listening to any of these podcasts to make sure you visit all the pages and also take the time to listen to all the podcast interviews to get that information you need for your business. The purpose of the BMWOC podcast is to share our industry information and to encourage you, the career seeker, working professionals, and enthusiasts to see what's going on in the industry that affects minorities, and especially in all of the industries that we are getting out there. We don't want you to feel like that there's just one type of industry. This podcast is designed to show you all of the lines of industry and professions and talents that is available to you. So make sure that you take really good information, because you cannot get this information anywhere else but the BMWOC. Before we get started today, we would like to thank our corporate sponsors, which are Cat Sereno LLC, Cheryl Wood Empowers, Concern and Learning, Evangelism Radio, Genesis Preferred Solutions, J Coach International, Nails Tax Help, My Financial Home, Power, STCI, and the student teacher, along with our other business affiliate sponsors and everyone who is supporting this event. So today we're going to get right into our interview today. We have Michael Laidler here, who is passionate for leadership coach training. He's a certified trainer and keynote speaker who is unwavering commitment to excellent passion and loyalty. And he has quickly earned himself the reputation as an up-and-coming industry leader. Over the course of the decade, he has garnered extensive leadership experience, primarily in law enforcement. That's definitely going to be interesting. And so he is also a John Maxwell Team certified coach, and he has facilitated numerous mastermind groups, providing one-on-one leadership coaching and hosting leadership workshops. So I want you guys to keep continuing reading his bio, because it's definitely going to be enlightening to know all that he has. And in the meantime, we're going to welcome Michael to the podcast. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be on today's show.
I'm excited for you to be here too. And so with all this going on, tell us, who is Michael Laidler? Where are you from? And what did you do before you got into speaking?
Ooh, let's see. Let's see where I can start this great journey. It actually started when I was a young man growing up in Miami, Florida. I was actually raised by my mother and my grandmother, and I think that provided me with a lot of great life experiences. First and foremost, having two strong women who had an unlimited amount of love to give showed me what hard work can give us. My mother worked every day. I don't even know how she was able to work and be at all of our events. Honestly, I don't know how she was able to do that. But when I was able to see that, that gave me such a great idea of what hard work can get you. It isn't just about the money. I mean, the money's important, but the fact that she was able to care for us, and when I mean us, I mean my sister and I, and still provide us a home and allow us to thrive much further than she was able to, really left a big mark. And my grandmother was a whole other story. My grandmother, which I recently started telling people, was she was handicapped. She had her left side, her left arm, and her left leg. She didn't really have full function of that. However, she was able to raise 3 kids, me, my sister, and my cousin, in Miami, Florida. And if that's not a something to praise or something to be happy about, I don't know what is. Because what she was able to do with limited mobility, some of us can't do with all the mobility. And I think that's what has inspired me every day, is because I'm able to look back at her life and say, you know what, if my grandmother, who wasn't given all the extremities, given all the opportunities physically to raise children and help us get to where we're at today in our lives, if she can do it, what's holding me back? What's stopping me from accomplishing the same goals? And I've been able to apply that throughout my life. When I went to Florida State University, I thought, you know what, I need to do more. So I became a police officer in Tallahassee, Florida. And that provided me with a lot of life experience, especially at the age of 19. I mean, I was a police officer making life decisions, making changes to people's lives, helping them out with what was going on with them. And shortly after becoming a police officer, I wanted even more than that. And I ended up becoming a Border Patrol agent in Laredo, Texas. And if anybody looks at the map of Texas, go all the way down to the border. That's Laredo, and that's where
Wow. Okay.
that's where I lived for 4 years. And during that time, I actually became a canine handler. And while I wasn't leading people, I had to lead a dog. And if anybody is a pet owner, you know how hard it is for dogs, especially dogs in law enforcement, because they're like alpha males, alpha females. They're very strong-willed, but I had to lead him to become successful. And at the tail end of 2013, my son was born, who's 4, and he's Michael Laidler Jr. So many people say we're twins, and I can't even argue with him on that one. But I wanted more of a life for him, and that's when I actually became a correctional officer in Florida for the Federal Bureau of Prisons. And that's where I really I saw a real change in my mindset, because while I was doing all this moving, I was actually pursuing a master's degree in business. And all during 2013, fall semester, August through December, that last semester, I actually enrolled in a leadership course. And it's like everything added up at that time to where I knew that I was coming around to my own. And this was probably, let's say I was in my late 20s at the time. And shortly after that, about 2 years later, I actually became a lieutenant in Louisiana, where I live now. And that's when life kind of punched me in the face, so to speak. And that's because I realized that I knew nothing about leadership. Yes, it was great to read books. It's great to go to seminars, but now I was finally applying it. And if people, for all those that are listening, it's one thing to be a great theologist. It's great to read books and study them. But when you have to apply them to real people, that's when you're going to really understand and see where you're at. And I really felt lost, confused, overwhelmed, just because now I go from leading myself, leading a small family, leading a dog, to now I'm over 50 to 60 people at a time. And that doesn't even include the inmates. So now I'm in this leadership role, and I'm like, well, where do I go for help? And really, there wasn't much directly. There wasn't no one out there that I knew how to reach out to. And I contribute that to my upbringing, and not in a bad way, but I was designed from an early age to just work hard, go out there and do it on your own. And I think because of that, I thought I could continue on this path of doing things on my own.
Okay.
And that's,
Yeah, okay. I'm gonna tell you, I have to stop you right there, but only because you have shared so much in this few minutes about your transition in the law enforcement and leadership. And so I'm gonna deep dive, because I like to deep dive in some of this stuff. And I want to kind of go back to your first training in terms of law enforcement. When it comes to your future now, your today now, when you talked about and you said that you really didn't know anything about leadership, what was some of maybe that realization that you talked about? Was it over the course of the time that you were in law enforcement that you thought that you were leading somebody, and when you got to the point where you realized you really wasn't leading anything, was it that type of experience? Or that's the question I have there, because you said something very profound, that after all of that, you still didn't feel like you were leading anyone.
back then when I was younger, I mean, I'm only 32 now, but for a lot of people, that's a lot of life for people, especially those that are in law enforcement. And back when I was 19, 20, 21, I thought I was doing it all. No one could tell me that I didn't know what I was doing. But what I failed to realize was I wasn't really leading anybody. And why? Because nobody was following me.
Okay.
And that's a big part of leadership. That is my basic definition. Out of all the books I've read, out of everything that I've looked at, the very basic definition of leadership is having people that follow you. If people don't follow you,
Mm-hmm.
you have no there is no such thing. Like that whole leadership shouldn't be applied to you. So I after years I realized that, but I still didn't understand how to pursue
Mm.
that because I
Okay.
didn't have any. I had some male role models, but I didn't really have a father figure, so to speak. I never had anybody directly pull me to the side and say, Michael, you need to be doing this, or Michael, you need to pursue this part of your career. Versus it was, well, I'm going to go and work hard every day. I'm going to show up on time. I'm going to do my reports. I'm going to go there with a smile. I'm going to communicate well.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of it was with no direction, no end goal. And I think that when it finally came around to me, that's when I became into an official leadership position, at least as far as in the workplace, and that's as being a lieutenant. So early on, it was a lot of I can even say this now because it's about me. It was a lot of wasted time because
Mm-hmm.
if I knew back then what I know now as far as leadership, I believe I could have been further in my life and impact. I think that at the end of all of our days in this on this planet is that how much impact we have goes a far way and how great we can be in this society, in this community.
Okay. And I applaud the fact that you are, really stepping up and say, "Hey, I messed up. I really should have been so far along." And it's easy for us to be in positions where we think that we're leading and things like that because in my mind when I think of law enforcement and the things that you have displayed in this podcast interview so far is that I would have thought that you were leading, that you had followers, that people, followed you and really believed in what you said or did. But looking at what you're saying now, it's like this is a different perspective. It's not what you thought it would be. And so my question now is that as you were going to get your master's degree in business administration, what was that, when you talked about that slap in the face, what exactly was that moment that said, hey, I really need to be pursuing to be a John Maxwell speaker, even though you're heading for business? What was that thing that shifted you in a different path?
Well, the funny story actually behind my master's degree was because I had a buddy he's a professor now, and he was getting his doctorates in business administration. And at the time, he was like, "Hey, you know what? I make whatever dollars, 90 grand, 100 grand, whatever he was saying at the time." He was like, "Just by doing business." So I thought that that's something that I wanted to do. I didn't really have any clear direction on if I wanted to be a professor or I wanted to be a CEO. All I knew is that I wanted to get a master's degree. So even at that time, and I believe that was back in 2008, 2009, when I started my master's degree, I didn't really have a clear direction on why I wanted it. And it was that kind of that aha moment in that leadership course when it started talking about 3-year goals, 5-year goals, 10-year goals. And that's when things really started to push me forward. I learned about networking. I learned about communicating with the right people. And when I mean the right people, is people that are decision makers, because it's great to have great relationships with people, but when you're trying to move through companies, you're trying to promote, you're trying to grow your business, you have to talk to decision makers. And I didn't realize that. I thought, you know what? Let me just have a great relationship with the one person above me. I thought that was it. I thought that they would be the one that would push me to the next level. But it wasn't like that. It was great. They were great people, but they just weren't in a position to continue to help me grow. And it took me time to realize that. And that was just over just experience. It wasn't, once again, I didn't really have the benefit of someone pulling me to the side and say, you know what, Michael, you need to do this or you need to do that to accomplish more. So that my whole master's degree is kind of what that last semester is what kind of jump started me into, you know what, I need to become more focused on leadership itself. And
Mhm.
after I moved to Louisiana, probably about, I would say about 8 to 9 months later, I actually joined the local Toastmasters club. And if they don't know what Toastmasters is, it's a global worldwide organization with nearly 360,000 members in 142 countries, which focuses on leadership and communication skills. And that program, which I am the president of my local club today, it really helped me learn how to communicate. It really showed me how to gain and pick up leadership skills, which I wouldn't have had if I was just trying to do it on my own. And then
Mhm.
about a year and a half after being a Toastmasters, I still wanted more. And that's what led me to the John Maxwell program last summer. I actually saw two people that was in Toastmasters. They were in the John Maxwell team, and it made me curious. I mean, I'm a very curious person, and I think that's one of the reasons why I got a master's degree because I just like knowing more information.
We all need to be more curious. And so you went ahead and you joined the John Maxwell team and received your certification. And then from there, what was your impact after that?
You know what? Since the summer of 2017, which was last year, my impact has been amazing because while that program doesn't guarantee you business, it doesn't guarantee you clients, it guarantees growth if you apply it. Let me say it again. If you apply it, it gives you everything you need. But I've seen people that's been in the John Maxwell program for 5 to 6 years that have done nothing, so to speak. And that could be based on them just wanting the information, wanting to be learners, or just because they haven't applied it. But then I've seen people with 3 or 4 months in that has grown an amazing business already. And there's a whole bunch of other factors. But
Hmm.
what I learned in the John Maxwell team, it provided me with a great foundation for what I was already missing. And it's like when I start learning some of the leadership concepts, when I start participating in mastermind groups, and I start learning about coaching, that's when I finally felt that fire that was burning in me for so long. I started to feel it being directed at something. I felt it being directed at something that I never knew that I needed until I
Hmm.
start doing it. And through the leadership trainings I've done already, through the coaching clients I've had the great experience of being with, through the keynote speaking I've done, through the workshops, for me, every time I've left one, it's given me a euphoric high. It's given me something that I don't know how to explain, but it's an
I think
intrinsic
you
reward.
explained it really, really good. I'm gonna tell you, I'm actually excited for you that you have found something that really burns your fire and burns deep because a lot of us have passion to do speaking or leadership training or what have you, but the way that you explained it into words of how deep this was for you was really, really good to the point that you have actually won several awards in your Toastmasters Club. Talk a little bit about what awards you won, and and you have here in your bio that you've done an evaluation contact at the division level. So what does that really mean for someone who is a Toastmaster participant?
Well, I'll be honest, Toastmasters is probably one of the most inexpensive, and this isn't good because as I try to grow my business, I have to be careful. But to be honest with people, and I'm very straightforward with people, Toastmasters is what you want it to be. It's very inexpensive, but you can participate in speaking every week, depending on the club you're in, depending on your city. You can participate in doing evaluations of other people, and I think that's where the strength of Toastmaster comes in at. Because when we think about our jobs as leaders, supervisors, or managers, what do we do practically every day? We give feedback. We're always answering a question. And in Toastmasters, it teaches you how to give proper evaluations. And every year during the spring, Toastmasters, as a whole organization, they hold two contests. One is called the International Speech Contest, and the other one's called the Evaluation Contest. And what you do is you compete at your club. Then, if you win, you compete at an area contest. If you win that, you compete at the division contest, and if you win that, you compete at the district contest. Now, for the evaluation, it stops there. But if you're a winner in the international speech, you actually go to whatever site Toastmasters have, and you compete against people across the world.
Wow.
And
I don't think a lot of
that
people know that unless you're actually in the Toastmasters Club.
it is, and as leaders, as people that, as I know your audience is, as people that are pioneers, people that want to achieve, communication is so vital. Communication is so vital. I'm going to repeat it third. Communication is so vital for you to be able to go out there and explain yourself to people, be able to explain about what you have to offer, just be able to talk to people with the right kind of vocabulary or grammar goes a far way, especially when you're looking for them to pay money to you. I mean, when we think about it, when we're thinking about spending money or investing our time in people, especially someone we don't know, what are some of the things we're looking for? We're looking for someone that seems like they have some kind of experience and or education. And I think Toastmaster, it really helps it really helps the person that's never spoken to the professional speaker has given 20 that's been speaking for 20 years. That's how good Toastmasters is. But you have to work the program because it's designed for everybody. And it is, I mean, it's something that I kind of fell into because I was doing another program back when I was living in Florida, and a gentleman just mentioned it. And it even took, I'll be honest with everybody, it actually took me over a year to even go to the first meeting where I was living in Florida at the time. And then, like I said, it took me another, 7 to 8 months after I moved to Louisiana to participate in that club. So I don't want anybody to think that because Michael tells you to go do it once, that I expect you to go there the next day. Because
Right.
realistically, I didn't do that.
Hmm. You just have to
So
plan for it and really just to figure out when is a good time to do it and just do it. And I'm glad that you took the time to really explain that the work that goes into it, the mind frame that you had to change in order for to do it, and just the acceptance of all the information so that you knew whether or not this was going to be for you or not. I think a lot of people that I run across in my lifetime, they go out and they spend all this money to try to be, a life coach or a leadership coach, but they haven't thought about whether this is really truly for them or not. And that's what I like about this interview is that you're really talking about how this was a burning desire and you were fulfilled doing that. And I want people who want to be speakers or John Maxwell Team or Toastmasters to have the same enthusiastic knowledge that, hey, this is really really for me, because there's so many people out here trying to be speakers but it's not really for them. And just the work fact that you have to do all this work just to get your mind right to do the class, that is huge. I don't think a lot of people have really said that.
yeah, a lot of people think that when they look at speakers like Les Brown, Eric Thomas, John Maxwell, TD Jakes, they think that that's an overnight success. But when you look back at those guys, when you look back at their biographies or their history, you actually realize that they've gone through a lot to get to where they're at now. They didn't just wake up one day and say, you know what, I'm going to be a millionaire speaker where everybody wants to call me. No, some started in churches, some started just speaking at wherever they could find anywhere to speak. And if you're going into the speaking realm, be ready for people to tell you no. Be ready for people to want free. Be prepared for people not to understand what you can offer. But it takes that time. It takes the building of relationships in order for you to be successful in any field in general, but especially in speaking. And because you got to think about it. If you're not offering an actual product, how do you quantify that? How do you quantify the results? A lot of times, that's why a lot of organizations, a lot of people, they don't look at leadership skills as important because it's hard to quantify it until you start looking at studies. I mean, there's one study out there that says over 70% of employees leave because they don't like the supervisor. I mean, how do you fix that ahead of time? I mean, and that's training, leadership training, communication training, all the things that we overlook because we get so caught up with payroll training, doing the other tasks that people love to do. But it's all. But sometimes when we don't work on those soft skills, we forget that we're in a people's business. No matter what business you're in, people run companies, not machines, not computers, not whatever robots people create or think they create. It's people. And if you don't know how to connect with them, it's really hard for you to grow your business. It's very hard for you to become what you want to be when you leave this world.
You're absolutely correct and definitely on all of the points. So, fast forward into today, you have your business now. So, tell us everybody what the name of your business, and you provide this type of leadership training for organizations, correct?
Absolutely. My business is simple. It's Michael Laidler, LLC. And my focus, and I base this focus on my own life experiences, is I focus on emerging leaders and or first level management because people in those positions are so overlooked. The shift supervisors, the sergeants, the people, whatever program managers, whatever title you want to give, that's an entry level or a first line supervisor, all that is missed because a lot of people, they only want to train their CEOs. They only want to train the people at the top of the food chain, but there is so much loss. And I felt that. I felt that being a lieutenant, that I lost so much impact because I wasn't trained at the bottom. But you have to think about it. Just picture it in your head. There's entry-level employees, you, and then the CEO. Who do you think those entry-level employees see every day? They don't see the CEO.
Mm-hmm.
They see you. They see the person that's going to deal with their schedule. They're dealing with the person that's doing their evaluation. They're dealing with the person they're going to tell you their personal issues. And if you don't know how to handle that, if you don't know how to grow these people to where their dreams are, how much harder is your job going to be? How many people do we lose at companies, not because the pay is good or the benefits are good? It's just because the supervisors don't connect. They don't have those relationships. And that's what my business focuses on. It focuses on helping those people that are getting into leadership roles. Or even if you've been in a leadership role and you feel like you need more training, that's where I come in at. I provide you one-on-one coaching. I provide leadership trainings. I provide workshops. I provide keynote speaking. And the best part about it is that I do it in person and virtual. Because
Nice.
we know
I was going to
nowadays,
ask you. Yeah, I was going to ask you, do you do any virtual training? And if you do any in-person training, do you do that at your office or do you go to their location?
I do it at the location. If I do any group trainings, I will do it at an organization because I felt like that's the best place to do it. Because, I mean, think about it. Economically, it's a lot cheaper to bring me in versus sending 10 of your employees out to my location. So I'm trying to do all I can to, one, add value to those emerging leaders, those first level managers in an extensive way, but I'm also just trying to make sure I get the information to them. And I know so many companies are tied down with money, but when you actually look at it, there's another study that says for every employee you lose, you're going to pay 3 times more getting another employee. So why not just train the people you have? Why not give them, build a culture of love, build a community of where people, they feel bad when they leave because they're like, you know what, Michael, Anissa, they did everything they could to keep me here. They didn't just make me a better computer programmer. They made me a better person that I can take into my home. And that's when you see those people that are staying with companies for 30 years, not because the pay is great, it's because what they're giving you, those big companies. I mean, you look at the Chick-fil-A's, you look at the Apples, the Googles, that's what they're doing. They're giving their employees leadership training, communication training. They're giving them that because they want to keep them. Now, I understand I'm not that big of an organization, but I do understand that that's what people need. I mean, I've just finished leadership training with, it was a company of 15 people. I mean, and they loved it because they would have never had experienced that if their owner didn't cherish them, if they didn't want them to grow. But it doesn't matter the size of your company. Everybody needs leadership training, whether it's you, 15 people, or you have a company of 5,000. Every company needs it because every company has people.
Okay. Would you say your biggest strength in leadership training is just teamwork? Just making sure that people understand teamwork and how leadership plays into that?
Oh, absolutely. I've found out, as I mentioned about my upbringing, that hard work by yourself doesn't get you everywhere. You have to, as a follower, you have to be able to use your team. As a leader, you have to build that team up so they can help each other out. There's so much more impact that we can have when we work together. It's essentially you're magnifying your results. I mean, I don't know how to better put that, but that's why there's all these professional teams out there. I mean, you could tell when the team is really cohesive, even if they don't have the best players, they win. I mean, let's look at, and I'm a big basketball guy, which I've kind of gone away.
Who's your favorite? What's your favorite team? What's your favorite team?
Now in basketball, it's the Lakers. And that's who. Now football, it's the Dallas Cowboys. So hopefully nobody hangs up the call right now.
No, we are not going to even have that on this podcast today. Okay, I'm a Giants fan. I'm not even gonna go there with the Redskins.
But yeah.
I know that I need leadership training because leadership changes. As leaders change, so do the practice of leadership. And so I really feel it's important for those who are like myself and out there who are very unique businesses to take a leadership class so that when they are collaborating with other CEOs or entrepreneurs or individuals, that they have those leadership qualities. And I think it's just really important for us to have that. So that's why I had asked you that question about the teamwork, because I think teamwork, leadership, collaboration, all those tie in together. And without that, we really will not be able to communicate effectively. That's just how I kind of look at it. I don't know what your thoughts are on that though, but I just thought I'd throw that out there for the cowboy fan out there. The cowboy fan might have an opposition.
Yeah, and that's why I was going to talk about the sports team, because if you looked at, I believe it was 2004 Los Angeles Lakers, they constructed a team of all-stars, but they didn't win because they weren't cohesive. Every person on the team wanted to be the superstar. So you had guys like Kobe Bryant, Shaquille O'Neal, Gary Payton, Karl Malone. In their all minds, they were all the alpha dog. They couldn't figure out how to put it all together when they faced the Detroit Pistons, who were a team. So if you just take that one example, I know it was 15 or close to 15 years ago, but that's one of the things that comes up in my mind right away. Think about a team that you're on today. What makes it successful? Is it because you have the best players on the team, or is it because you have the best cohesiveness and you have people that can fill your weaknesses and you fill their weaknesses? I think being leaders, especially as the first level management, you have to really know your people, because as the CEO, you're not going to know all your entry level employees. That's not your job. Your job is to know your first level managers, your middle management, your vice presidents. That's your job there. So as a first level manager, you know the skill sets of everybody, and it's part of your job to figure out how to move them to where you have a strong team, to where you can have the strongest team out there amongst the other ones. But if you don't know how to do that, how do you do it?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And I
And
think that's what we
that's where
run
you
into.
come in at. That's where you come in at, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I love it because I've been on teams. I mean, especially being in the police force. I mean, law
Yes.
enforcement. I mean, being on squads of 5 to 6 people, border patrol where you're working with the same probably 10 to 15 people, and even now as a lieutenant, I mean, we have groups of people, and I've been blessed that I'm able to have some of this leadership training because I use it to my advantage in a good way. I find what makes the team what makes the team really move, what makes them burn. And at least in my experience, it's competition, which is pretty cool. They love competing with each other in a
Mm-hmm.
good way. And I think that sometimes it's hard for you to see if you're trying to manage people versus lead them. Because as leaders, we're there to make them better. We're there to help them grow. And as you become better leaders through training, focused training, I think that goes an extremely far way in how much you progress, especially in your organizations, because everybody sees it. I mean, it's even if they don't acknowledge it, they
Mm-hmm.
definitely see what you're doing because of how much more you're achieving, how much more productive you are, because
Mm-hmm.
your team work is great.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying. It's definitely something that they have to consider. And I really want to encourage everyone who's listening that if you missed any of this really great stuff that Michael is sharing, please make sure you catch the playback and rewind it, because leadership is the key to your career or your business. It doesn't matter if you a first level manager and all that. Just learning how to work with leaders and how to be a leader, it really works in your advantage. And it definitely worked in my advantage. I will tell you, Michael, that I learned very early on in my career how to work with leaders and to know where I stood in my status, working with different people of different types and statuses. And so I've learned how to follow, and I also learned how to lead. And that also gave me the ability to transition very freely within the system or out of the system. And because, like you, I used it to my advantage, knowing what I know. But if I had not have learned that, I don't think I would have gotten as high as I was in my career either. And that's how important it is that I want people to hear in this particular podcast. So let me ask you something before we get down to the end of your interview, is that are you engaging in any type of conferences or events that you would like people to sign up for that they can come and get leadership training? Or are you having something on a regular basis where someone can, sign up for and attend your leadership training classes?
By very shortly, I'll be releasing an e-course called the 3 C's for Emerging Leaders. And to give you guys a quick sample of what it is, it covers the 3 things that I think every leader needs. And I can go to the internet and type leadership in right now and it'll give you 1,000 things. But sometimes as emerging leaders, I'll be honest, we don't have time to read 20 things. I don't have time to sit here and read 15 John Maxwell books, which I like, but realistically, I don't have time for that. So I narrowed it down to 3 basic things that I think every leader, especially starting out, and those 3 C's are character, courage, and communication. If you can master those 3 in the beginning of your career, whether it's you're going to become you're going to become a leader, or you're already one, if you can master those 3, you will see such a big difference in your growth and the people around you. And I'm offering that because I want to give people something that they can start off with. And I think that offer through the e-course is amazing. Now, I do a lot of posts on LinkedIn as well as Facebook and Instagram, and that's just kind of giving people a little something every day to keep them going. I do have an email list that you can access through my website, and I do that. I don't have any upcoming seminars yet. I just had one last month in the month of February, which was called Live to Lead, and that was a half-day workshop, which was amazing. But I don't have any other conferences coming up at this time.
Don't worry. By the time we get people to start calling you, you're going to end up having one. So it's okay, because I want people to reach out to you and have them call you to have a leadership training at their facility. I mean, that's what this platform is all about, is for people to reach out for services just like yours. Really appreciate all the good stuff that you have shared, because I think everything that you shared so far is definitely on point in terms of if someone ever wants to become a leadership coach, what they're going to have to do to get to that far, which is doing the work and investing in yourself, and just understanding that you really don't know until you actually know. And that's basically what I got out of this interview. And I really am appreciative, and let me know that I need to brush up on my leadership skills as well, and continuing to do that too. Other than that, do you want to leave the guests who are listening maybe one last piece of advice that you would like to give to someone to kind of sum up your whole point in your podcast interview?
I keep it very simple. I am a simple person, and that's kind of part of my tagline, which is, it is simple, create your legacy. What I always tell people, if you do anything, invest in yourself. Do not wait for your company to invest in you, or you say, you know what, I'm going to do this in 6 or 7 months. Find ways to work on yourself today, whether that's logging onto my email list, which I would love, or subscribing to some of the things I do on YouTube or my LinkedIn. But in all honesty, you need to start today, right now, before this phone call and before the podcast is over. Find a way to invest in yourself, because your growth is going to be only dictated on how far you want it to go. Nobody else has the same passion of your goals than you will. And if you don't invest in yourself today and every day after this, you're only slowing your own progression down. So for all the business entrepreneurs, all the people that want to be leadership coaches, all the people that just want to be successful and significant, you have to invest in yourself. You have to do it. I mean, I can tell you, I'm sure this is in the same boat as I am. I mean, we invest in ourselves. We understand that what we have doesn't come free. What we have doesn't come free with money or time. And if you're not doing something every day to invest in yourself, to making yourself better, you're missing out on another day on this planet. And I think that's the one thing I always like to leave with people is, if you do anything, if you take anything from when you hear me speak, you have to invest in yourself in order to accomplish whatever you're trying to accomplish in your life.
Awesome. And let's make sure that they don't miss anything. Give out your contact information so they can find you.
Awesome. Absolutely. My website is www.michaelaidler.com. And yes, there's an A in between my first name and my last name. My email is michael@michaelalaidler.com. Once again, there is an A in between that. And then I can be found on LinkedIn at Michael Laidler. Also Facebook, Michael Laidler, and Instagram, Michael Laidler. I do have a YouTube channel which I'm building slowly but surely. So I don't really have too much of a end on that. But if you guys are looking for me, email me, text me, do some way to reach out, even if it's for advice on, Michael, you know what? I'm having a hard time in this leadership position. Because I remember, I love what I do. I really do. And I know a lot of people say they have the passion, but for me, even when I give out, let's say I do a free coaching session with you, even in that 30 minutes I'm with you, it is so impactful for me because I can see when that light bulb goes on in someone's head. Figuratively, like I don't really see it because I'm not with you if it's virtual, but I can tell, because that person will take a deep breath, and that feeling to me in my position as a leadership coach and trainer is so amazing. So that's why I love to do it. And of course, I would love to come to your business and give leadership training, or we can do it virtually. You can say, you know what, Michael, can you just do a virtual webinar to my group? Hey, I can do that too. But I do love it. I do love speaking. I do tailor a lot of my presentations to what the organization needs. If you need help with goal setting, if you need help with teamwork, if you need help just helping people unlock their potential and help them become greater in what they do, I can tailor that based on my experiences, based on my education, based on the content that I have. I have that. And I love doing it because everybody needs it. Like John Maxwell says, everything rises and falls in leadership. And that's everything, no matter what business, service, product, life goal, no matter if it's religious, non-religious, everything rises and falls in leadership. And we see that on the day-to-day basis.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so everybody, you already heard it here firsthand. Michael Laidler talking about leadership training, teamwork, and how we need to have it. There is no reason why you can't contact him because I have his information right on this page. All you have to do is just go down to the bottom of the page and click on that. And also touch base with some of the other leadership coaches that we have on this podcast platform. We have people touching all different areas of leadership. And so from small to big businesses, you have resources here that can help you with your career or your business or whatever the goals that you're trying to do. We have it here on the BMWOC. So, Michael, I want to thank you so much for being on this podcast platform. I'm definitely very, very informed about everything that you said. I agree 100%. I can't even tell you in all words without being tongue-tied because you're speaking my language. It is all about learning how you can elevate yourself to the next level by just getting a coach and understand where you fall and understand how you can follow those who are impactful in your life and that can help elevate your life so that you can become a leader. And that's the true message of today's podcast. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you for having me. I know this has been a great podcast for me, one of the better ones that I've been on, so I do appreciate it. I know your audience, I can tell that they appreciate what you do, just the fact that they're listening now. And I'm so excited about what people are going to be able to learn just from this podcast alone on themselves.
Awesome.